This is the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, episode 43, Clinton County Trails Coalition, with our guest today, Bruce Saunders.
If the city grows, you have to have more trails. But I will be happy when we are connected from Morrow to Clarksville to Wilmington to Washington Courthouse, and that it's somebody else's problem after Washington Courthouse. Not problem, it's somebody else's project to do, put it that way.
What is going on, everyone? This is your host of the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, Dustin Pierce, joined with my co-host, Tiara Harris. Real Change is a positive, constructive, and lighthearted source of local news events and resources. In our podcast, we interview leaders of local organizations to help squash rumors and encourage a greater sense of pride in our community. We have an awesome episode today with Bruce Saunders. Super interesting guy. And so Tiara and I actually had coffee with him at Kava House a few weeks ago, took some notes for an article in our paper about the Trails Coalition, but it was so interesting to listen to that I thought it would be a darn shame if the community didn't get to hear it from his own voice.
Yeah.
So we sat down with him again and recorded a podcast for everyone to record these memories that Bruce has starting the Trails Coalition. But before we get into that awesome talk with Bruce, we're going to do a special thing today. We're going to do our favorite dishes at the new Trail House building next to Mulberry Street. So Kava House opened up a new restaurant, Trail House, and they have an amazing menu with crazy stuff on it. So we're going to do our favorite things so far. Tiara, what is yours?
So I had two dishes, and the first one was maple chicken, and I was not disappointed at all. It's chicken bites nestled in French toast dumplings. I can't even explain it. It doesn't do it justice.
French toast dumplings.
Just go and try it. And I did not get any cheese on it. I don't know if that's frowned upon, but it was fantastic. And then I also got, I believe it's called the Buddha Bowl. Also something you should try.
Yeah, they did it right.
They did it right.
We actually had lunch there today before this recording with Bruce. And yeah, we're talking with Bruce. It was a good time.
It was fun. I got to learn even more things that you guys will never hear.
Yeah, things on the podcast we didn't really share. Well, his son owns a business in town and stuff, which is pretty cool. That's a podcast for another day.
I guess, yeah. Just bring his son in.
Yeah.
The whole lineage.
For sure. So since you didn't ask my favorite thing, it's a give and take, dear. It's a give and take. No, I've had the Geta burger. So Geta, for those who don't know, Cincinnati's culture, German culture, Geta is sausage and oats mixed together because the early immigrants couldn't afford full sausage, so they mix it together. So it's like a breakfast burger, has an egg on it that explodes when you eat it. It's good. It's a good time. So check out Trail House and then walk it off on the trail.
Yeah, exactly. And then come back for seconds.
Yeah, as you listen to the history of the trails on our podcast today. So what was your favorite part of our talk with Bruce?
Because of Harvest of Gold, I think I enjoyed hearing him speak about experiential learning, which I know isn't involved in the trails at all, but I am trying to work on forming Harvest Gold to become more experiential learning based. And I went to Wilmington College, so, you know, their whole motto, hands-on learning, that's experiential based as well. So I liked the insight that he gave on that.
Yeah, that was good. It's a good time. I like Bruce's calm, methodical approach to things. He's very ambitious, it seems like, to have start the Trails Coalition and then see it through and overcome roadblocks to make them happen. And he's just like a very calm, tenacious guy. I have a lot of respect for his personality, I think. Cool. So without further ado, let's hear from Bruce about how the trails got started and their vision for the future. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
How was your day so far?
Busy.
Yeah. Are you retired?
I am.
Yeah. It's still busy?
Yeah. That's the way you retire well, is to stay busy.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm with our regional Presbyterian church, and we were interviewing candidates for ministry this morning, and some of it went well, and some of it was kind of hard news for them. So
I'm sure you delivered that well.
I did. We met from 9:30 to 12:30. It's a long time to sit in front of a computer on a Zoom meeting.
It was over
yeah.
Zoom.
That's what's consumed my morning.
Are you excited for the Trail House to open tomorrow? I saw that on social media.
I haven't seen that yet, but I talked to Josh yesterday, and he said, it looks like Friday is going to be the soft opening. So
that's awesome.
I'm really anxious for that.
Be a madhouse.
I think it will be. And they're hoping it won't be. They hope they can serve whoever comes well and do a good job of it and not have not get overwhelmed and get lost. And people say, well, I didn't get my order in time or something was wrong. But I think, well, everybody's been looking forward to it for so long.
I'm excited. It's even closer to my house.
Yeah, I'm going to be there for breakfast every single day of the week.
Yeah.
They do have breakfast? What time is...
So I guess I shouldn't say that. I don't know yet. Last time I talked to Jen Perky, she said it was going to be a breakfasty all-day joint. So the menu might have changed since then.
So something that would close at 6 or 4?
Well, the hours for the 21st tomorrow is 4 to 7.
Oh, so not a breakfast.
Well, for the first day. But then after that, I think I might change their hours.
Okay.
Because I think Saturday they're open all day, it looks like.
Nice.
Last time I talked to her, she said it was going to be kind of like the restaurant Hangover Easy in Columbus. It's in LSU campus, so it has like a college bar kind of feel to it, but it's like an all-day breakfast place.
That's
like
cool.
Hangover Easy, like easy eggs, you know?
Yeah.
So
I've never been there.
I think she said they're going to have alcohol at the Chow House.
Yeah, I think eventually. They got to go through the process and get the license, but
Okay.
they don't have really control over that except apply for it and get it as soon as you can get it. I think that's going to come a little later, as soon as they get the license in. But we had a place like that on the corner of the courthouse. It's now an insurance company or something, a little house on the corner of Sugar Tree Street, Walnut. It was open at 6 a.m. and stayed open until 2 in the afternoon. And you could get breakfast or lunch, and that was it. And
When
it
did
done
that
for the day.
close?
When did it close?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Is the building still there?
The building's still there, yeah.
Which building is that? I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, on the courthouse square,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
it would be the southeast corner. Across from it is also CVS.
I'll have to look into
You
this.
just have to pay attention when you bike by.
Okay. All right. So before we get into the Trail Coalition, we want to just kind of know about your history. So are you a Wilmington native, or when did you get to Wilmington?
No, I'm not from here. I moved here to go to Wilmington College. I'm from Delaware County, Ohio, Sunbury, specifically. I came here to college because of the work-study program. And when I finished college, I thought, well, I'll teach a couple years somewhere and then go back to my old school system and teach there. But I never did. I started teaching in Wilmington and spent my whole career in Wilmington. I was certified to teach everything. That was my idea. I'll just teach everything, self-contained classrooms. Well, I was the only guy in the building, and the other teacher said, hey, I'll teach your math if you'll teach my science, because I don't know how to teach science. And then someone else would say, I'll teach your social studies if you teach my science. And about my second or third year, I was teaching science all day long. But it really worked well because I could put a lot of energy into those lessons. I could get labs set up, and I could use it 5 times a day. Most teachers had 5 different preps. They had to get ready, all the different subjects. So I taught at Main Building on Sugar Tree Street, and that closed in 1979. So I did 9 years there. And then Holmes opened up, and I taught there for the rest of my teaching career, and then was principal there for 10 years until it was time to move on to central office.
And you got into the technology department?
Yeah. Back around 1980, I wrote the first grant I had ever written for Apple IIe computers. And it was to bring girls up to speed with boys, because girls didn't like math, the statistics showed. Girls didn't like math. They didn't do as well as math, and they didn't care. So the first year that I had those computers to follow the grant thing that I wrote, it was girls only, and it was math only. And boy, the boys were just foaming at the mouth. Can we stand for recess and do that? And that did really get the girls going. Like, we can't do this during class, and you have to stand for recess or after school if you want to do it, So that did get the girls motivated. But after a year of doing what we said we'd do and graphing the results and all that, then the computers were ours to use. So then everybody could use them the following year. So that was my beginning, and I learned right along with the kids. I didn't know any more about it than the kids did. One of my students is a farmer, and he really got into it. He'd stay after school and recesses and all that, not just to do the math, but to learn how computers work. And the following year, he was at a different building. He had gone on to the junior high. And I learned that he had taken his cow to 4-H, and he sold the cow, and he got a good price for it at the fair market. And he spent that money to buy his own computer. He bought an Apple IIe just like we used there at school. And I'm still in touch with him today through Facebook. He lives somewhere out in the county. I haven't seen him in person, but I see him on Facebook. And he's still into computers. Yeah,
That's awesome.
And farming. He never gave up either one. So that's my deal with technology. And Wilmington College at the time, they didn't have any computers. And Jim Bolin was the head of the education department and said, well, would you teach college students about technology? Pre-education students, people are going to be teachers. Those in ag majors, that's who I had. And so the colleges didn't have any computers. And at that time, we built a whole lab at Holmes School by writing grants and putting them all together. And so the college kids came out to Holmes Elementary School and they took their class out there, which was really good for the kids that want to be teachers, to be in a school and see what goes on in a school, what things look like and how things work. So I did that for 10 years. And by the end of 10 years, college students were now coming to college with technology skills because they'd grown up in it. The first ones I taught didn't know how to get on the internet. They didn't know what email was. They didn't have any of those skills because they grew up in a time before that existed. So we phased out that class completely at Wilmington College because it had become obsolete.
Sure.
Because I did that at the college, that's why the superintendent came to me and said, okay, we worked real hard to put computers in every classroom, but most of them are just gathering dust because the teachers don't really know what to do with them. So we want to hire you away from being a principal to go to all the buildings and sit down with the teachers and show them how to use it for instruction. Not just show them, but be with them, keep checking in on them, making sure once they get it, they can continue to do it, supporting them in learning new software. So I did that for, I think, 5 years. That's where I came into the technology. Yeah.
That's crazy. And then what was your career after the school?
When DHL went out at the airport, the schools were going to be directly affected because of lack of taxes they'd be collecting from that company. So they said, we're going to have to let go a lot of administrators. In your position, you've done a good job for 5 years. We've moved ahead. Teachers do know what they're doing now with computers. He said, the board is looking at your position as to one to eliminate. I thought, well, if I was on the board, I'd eliminate that position too. So
that's a good spirit of you.
Yeah. Really, it was time. It was okay. And then a friend of mine who I was a principal with had moved on to Oakwood in Dayton. And when she heard that I was going to be eliminated in Wilmington, she called and said, we need you over here. We're in the same state Wilmington was in 5 years ago. We have all these computers and the teachers don't know what to do with them. So I went over there for another 3 years. And then I retired from there just because if you don't ever quit, you'll never quit. It was time to retire. My oldest grandson had 1 year before he went off to kindergarten. And I thought, if we're going to get some good quality time together, I can't be at work 8 hours a day. So I left for that reason, and I spent a good year and a half with him. And then the opportunity came up. One of my former students called and wanted me to start a school. And I said to him, this isn't really Robbie Roberts. This is not you. And it really is, Mr. Saunders. And I thought, well, if you call me Mr. Saunders, that does kind of bring, that's what kids call me that were in my classes. And so he says, let me put my vice president on. It was another kid I had in class, Jeff Copsey. He says, this is Jeff Copsey. I said, who's on the other? He said, that really is Robbie Roberts. I said, why does he want to start a school? He says, well, I'm just going to confirm with you. It's Robbie Roberts. He'll tell you why he wants to start the school. So he did. I was in the hardware store shopping when I got this call. And he said, can you meet me out at the old Dayton Port Authority on David's Drive? I thought, this better really be right. Or I don't want to meet some stranger in an abandoned building. But it was. So he showed me around. He said, I bought this building, and I'd like you to make it into a school. So that's what we did. It took me 6 months of working there. I was the only employee because I had to hire everybody. And then we opened for school the next fall. And we had a year and a half. The corporate group at R&L said, we're changing directions. We don't want to support this school anymore. So we ended it in December of the second year.
What was the school called?
It was called the Experiential Academy. And it was that because what Robbie said to me, what kind of school are you looking at? And he said, I don't know, but I know it's what you did when I was in 5th grade teaching science. He said, we'd stand outside the door for our turn to go in. When the other kids came out, we'd say, what do you do today? What's going to happen today? Let us in on the secret. And most of the time the kids said, you find out for yourself. You don't want to spoil the surprise. So he said, whatever that was that you did, that's what I want this school to be. And so that's what it was. Everything was experiential. We had books, but we used them as references. The kids play acted things. The kids went on many field trips. We were always outdoors in good weather, doing stuff out there just for the experiences. And the parents constantly told me, my kid comes home, I pick him up from school every day, and they can't shut up about today. What happened to them today? And I wasn't teaching, but I knew the right people to hire, the people that did experiential education. But you can't really do it in a normal public school classroom. You have to have the money to take field trips, and you have to have that mindset that we're not going to read about the legislature of the state of Ohio. We're going to role play it. You're going to be this, you're going to be that. We're going to have an argument, and, we're going to see who wins. And, yeah. So that's exactly what we did.
Was it a private school?
It was a private school. Yeah. Okay. The kids had uniforms, and we interviewed them before they came in, and very few kids couldn't get in, but some kids had learning problems that wouldn't be able to meet their needs. Mm-hmm. So that's just the way that was. We had no special education program. We had 4th, 5th, and 6th grade our first year. And we enlarged it to 3rd, 4th, and 5th the next year. Every year I was going to add one more below and one above till it was K through 12. And we kept building more buildings. That was the plan. That's what we would have done. And we weren't even accredited the first year. That takes 3 years to become an accredited private school in the state of Ohio. So we had 1 year of paperwork done. But the reason they do that is just what happened to us, that people start up a private school and it only lasts for a year or two. And they don't want to mess with that. So if you're not in business for 3 years, you're not going to get your accreditation.
2015 is when it started?
About that.
Okay. So next question is, are you married and do you have kids?
I've been married for 43 years today. It's our anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. We have 3 kids. Our oldest is Grant, and Grant is 48 years old, lives in Centerville, but he lived in Wilmington most of their married life. He has 2 boys, and they're in high school now. Then our daughter, Sarah, is in Westerville, Ohio. She works for different drug companies. I know she's in nuclear medicine right now, but things change so rapidly in that industry, I can't keep up with what she's doing now and who she's doing it for. And then our youngest daughter, Annika, graduated from Wright State and went with some friends out to Colorado for a job fair to be a teacher. And she got a job. And I said, why would you go to Colorado? And she says, why not? I thought, pretty good. I said, well, here's my why not. Because all my fraternity brothers that went to Colorado, they never came back. Yeah. They're still there. Yeah. And I'm afraid that'll happen to you. And she says, well, it might. And it has. Yeah. So she's doing what I did. She taught science. Last year, she went into a coaching position where she coaches teachers on basic teaching, but they've been a middle school science teacher all that time. And she has 2 children.
How did you meet your wife?
At Wilmington College, not as a student. They were hosting some kind of teacher in-service day. And that was the first time I met her. We just happened to meet in the hall. We talked a little bit, and nothing came of it. And then the following year, main building closed down, and so did East End, where she taught, and so did Midland. Anyway, they all combined into homes, a bigger building. And then we were on the same staff, and that's where we really got to know each other.
So wait, Easton had closed before in the past and then reopened?
Oh, yes, it has.
Interesting.
Yeah, it closed down then it reopened as a 5th grade center, then it closed down again. It's like the building, when they need it, they use it.
Sure.
When they don't need it, they put it in mothballs. I wish they do it this time instead of sell it. I think it's the nicest school in our district. It's got all the modern conveniences, and it's got the only good architecture of any of the buildings. It looks like a school.
Yeah, it is nice.
It is.
Before we transition into the coalition, what are some of your hobbies?
I like to go skiing, snow ski. I've done a lot of that for the last 30 years. I like biking. That's kind of got me into trails 30-some years ago. I used to like swimming until we closed our Y. Now I don't have a place to swim. So I kind of put that aside.
Not an outdoor swimmer at the...
Oh, Clinton Swim Club? I used to manage that. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. When I first got married, we lived in the house behind the Clinton Swim Club.
Yeah.
My children thought that was our personal pool because I worked there and all their friends would come and yeah, I'm very familiar with that. Yeah, I swam out there, but it's only open in the summer. So.
True.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time with the Presbyterian Church. I've been a member there since I moved to Wilmington, and Rails to Trails takes a lot of time.
Is that the one in Timberglen?
Timberglen, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you live in Timberglen area?
I live right across the street.
Okay.
On Timber Lane.
That's a nice church.
Yeah.
On the outside, I've never been inside of it.
The inside's really nice as well. My little sister went to the preschool there.
Oh, did she? Yeah.
Yeah. And they had a little service on the inside. It's very nice architecture.
Yeah. We just built it in the year 2000. It used to be in Southridge. We sold that building and built a bigger one.
Okay. The next question is, what is a defining moment of your life that has helped shape who you are or your values and personality?
I did not like school as a kid because it was boring. It was, sit in your seat, be still, read the book, I can't wait to get out of here. And then I finally took a class in high school, junior year high school, speech class, where we gave speeches and we did plays. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be a speech teacher. So that's what I came to Wilmington College to do, until one of the professors, who was also my advisor, said, you really need to get in elementary. They are screaming for men in the elementary school. I thought, well, I'll look into it. And he set me up with working at a couple of elementary schools to help pay my way through college. And I thought, they pay you to do this? This is so much fun. So I switched my major to elementary. I got a certificate in that. Those are pretty defining moments right there.
Yeah. Going from hating school to being a teacher for X number of years.
Yeah.
Making school more enjoyable for other people.
That's exactly what was behind. I thought, I'm not going to make these kids sit in rows and be quiet all day long. I always used to say to teachers, you're giving these kids worksheets all day. Now, 5-10 years from now, are those kids going to remember what that worksheet was all about? No. But kids will come up to you if you do experiences with them and say, I remember the time when we did this. I remember the time when we did that. And I thought, that's what you want. That's what shapes them. It lets them find out what they enjoy and where they want to go in life, is by giving them a variety of experiences.
How did you start the Clinton County Trails Coalition?
Well, it's really not my fault. It was my friend Mac McKibben. He had read about it, I think, and kept kind of bugging me about every time we got together. We should do this in Wilmington. We should do this in Wilmington. So we got our bikes and our kids together. We went down to Loveland and got on the Little Miami Trail. And I thought, well, this is fantastic. It used to be a railroad, and now it's a bikeway or pedestrians. And what's the purpose of it? Look at the river, look at the woods, relax. Grant always wanted to ride fast and go ahead of us. Go ahead, Grant. You can't get lost. Just stop someplace. We'll catch up with you. So that's when Mac said, well, let's start an organization. And let's do it at your house.
Wow.
So that's where it started, in my living room. So it was just Mac and I and Dr. Tom Neville, who since moved to Colorado, never came back. But we got the thing going, and then we went to the Presbyterian Church on weeknights to hold our meetings because we needed a bigger space than my living room. And it grew out of that. For the first 10 years, all we did was advocate for trails. We need to do this. We need to do this. Who can help us do this? We didn't have a trail. Once we built the Luther War and Peace Path between Mulberry Street and Nelson Avenue, then people could experience the trail and go, oh, this is pretty cool. Why don't we do this earlier? Well, we kept telling you, that really helped a lot, that we had one trail that people could experience and know what we're talking about. You can tell somebody, but it goes back to the experiential thing. If you go on the trail, you have a whole different perspective than if someone just explained it to you.
Yeah. Around what year did you guys first decide to have those meetings at your house?
I think around 1985.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your meetings grew. Like, who did you get to come to those meetings? What did you talk about?
A lot of the people that were first in our group were our friends, most of them Presbyterians. But It wasn't a Presbyterian thing. It was just, that's where we met, and those are the people that we knew. And we talked about how can we get the word out to people. Aside from advocating for trails, we spent a lot of time doing fundraisers, getting people to donate to the trail that we didn't have. You got to look to the future. We're going to have a trail, but we need money to do it. So when we got maybe $1,400 together, we spent it on an abandoned corridor between Clarksville and Morrow. It's about 7.5 miles long. And I was kind of out of the loop on that. And I said, why didn't we buy the one between Clarksville and Wilmington, which is one of the more recent trails we opened? And they said, because we didn't have that much money. We took the cheaper one. But 30 years later, it worked out well. We were able to sell that land to the village of Morrow, and we actually wrote the grant for them. But they received the money. They bought the land from us. We had a big boost to our treasury. And now we're cooperating with them to get them to build a trail on that abandoned corridor. They're going to come from Morrow. We're going to come from Wilmington, or we're from Ogden now. And we're going to meet in Clarksville and get connected to the trail system.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. My goal is to live long enough and be able to ride a bike long enough to actually ride it.
Yeah. So the Lutheran trail started first, but I think there was a trail that you wanted to purchase before that.
The first thing we thought of was from Nelson Avenue to Ogden or to Clarksville. And Mac and I and my kids hiked that several times. And of course, you get to the first bridge and there was no bridge. It's the creek, Lytle Creek's crossing it. So we'd wade through the creek and go on the next section. And it was all grown-up weeds and honeysuckle, and it was hard to get through. But that was our first plan. Oh, that's an easy connect. There's nothing out there. There's nothing to get around. So we just need the Roberts family to give us land or sell it to us. And that was our plan. Well, the Roberts family at that time was in charge. The boys were still, I think they were in high school at the time. But he said, absolutely not. That's our land. That's our private place. And we will never sell that to you. Not me, not my children, not my grandchildren. It's just not going to happen. So take it off your map. Okay. So that's what we did. We thought, okay, we still have the money that we've collected. What can we do with it? So we worked closely with the mayor, Davy Risk, in Wilmington, and we got ownership of the land along with the city. And then we paid for the trail, like the engineering and the pavement, but we had volunteers that built the bridges. The covered bridge and the pony bridge were both built as Eagle Scout projects.
Those are nice bridges, too.
They're very nice bridges. But the Eagle Scouts, I was also a scoutmaster for many years, so I know about that stuff, too. But their job isn't to build something. Their job is to organize a group and get the group to build something or do something or start a program. It's not to do it all yourself, but it's about leadership, about going further than that. So they were able to get all sorts of people that knew about construction. John Stanforth, our former mayor, was one of those volunteers. That's how he got involved in trails. And there was people that worked with John or other companies like John that knew how to build a bridge. And okay, we'll build a bridge for you.
That's the path from Mulberry to Nelson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what year was that happened?
That would be 95.
Okay. And then where did you guys go from there? What was the next trail?
The next trail was behind Wilmington College. We had Monty Anderson on our board, ag professor out there. We worked with the college to go through their land. We worked with the community. Part of it's in Wilmington Parks, the Southeast Neighborhood Park. And we called it a bicentennial project. It was Wilmington's bicentennial. So that's the trail that goes from the Southeast Neighborhood Park back behind the college, behind the baseball field, and comes out in the Arboretum. And now it goes around the engineer's office and comes out to the All Children's Park. That's really our goal. You want to build a trail, but if you can link it to something, especially link one park to another park, that's exactly what you want to do. It's all recreation.
Yeah. So with that trail, did the college help fund it other than with the land that they provided?
No, I don't believe they funded it. They allowed us to put a trail through their property, and they agreed to maintain it and just mowing the trail.
Okay.
They had to move some fences so the cows weren't back there. If you've taken that trail, you see the fences and the cows are over here.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know those cows belong to the college.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
The ag department?
That's
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
the ag department, yeah.
I've seen those cows out before.
Yeah.
Electric fence they have. Scary. Okay, so what was the next trail?
After that, we had to kind of fake it. We wanted to connect Luther Warren Peace Path to the Forsey Bicentennial Trail. Well, how do you do that? A railroad never went that way, so that wasn't an option. So we called it the Urban Trail, and the Urban Trail is leaving Luther Warren Peace Path, going up Sugar Tree Street, make a right on Grant Street, a left on Douglas, and a right on Wall Street, and that takes you right into Southeast Neighborhood Park. So to make that trail, we really just put up signs.
I was going to ask,
said Urban Trail,
Yeah.
this way, this way, this way. You know?
Okay. Were you ever part of the conversations of the Sugar Tree Corridor? I've heard of this project. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. There's the Sugar Tree Corridor between Wilmington College and Sugar Tree Street. And that is the same path I just said. Go up to Sugar Tree, make a right on Grant, and the left on Douglas, but just stay on Douglas and you go right to the middle of the campus. So there are signs there today that say Wilmington College this way or that way, depending on which way you're going. So that was one idea, to link the college kids. When I was in college, we would walk downtown. And sometimes we didn't quite know where we were going because it's all industrial and it's turning this way and that. And Wilmington College has everything a student needs right there. So if you're not looking for something to do, there's plenty to keep you busy and keep you occupied. You could eat there, sleep there, go to class there, meet your friends there. So there's not a lot of pull to get college kids downtown. There is now with what's going on at Sugar Tree Street. So we wanted to be able to make that connection, especially if they're going to drink alcohol. We don't want them driving back to the campus. And a lot of kids, they don't even bring a car to campus with them because you don't need one.
Didn't you say that when you went to Wilmington College, you had a job out on Nelson? You would actually walk what is now the Lutheran path back to college?
That's right. It was railroad tracks at the time.
Okay.
The bus took us to work. I worked the shift from 4 o'clock till midnight. And so the bus would take us to work. I don't think they paid the bus drivers very well because sometimes they didn't show up. It's like, it's midnight. I'm in bed. I don't know why they didn't show up. They just didn't. So I knew that I could go up Nelson Avenue and get on Main Street and hike all the way to the other side of town to get to the college. And then one of the other students that was working at the college in the work-study programs said, I know a shortcut. Get on the railroad tracks. And that'll take you right, where UDF is now. It'll take you right there in front of College Hall. Okay, so that was the winner. But it was creepy. It was 12:30 at night, and it was dark, and even darker under the trees. But you couldn't get lost because you're on the railroad tracks, right? So, yeah. At that time, I never imagined that we would make that into a bike trail that we would use every day. So.
What was your job out there that you worked for?
Wilmington had a work-study program. And so I went to Wilmington because of that work-study program. I did factory work. We made parts for cars, window frames and little pieces that I don't even know what they were for, but you'd stamp them out. And so I'd work every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I go to school on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. They had 6 days a week at that time. That paid my way through college.
Did you say when we talked last time at Kava House that when you would walk that trail, it would be kind of sketchy and you would see some people camped out there at that time?
Living out there.
Yeah. I think we talked a little bit about economic development being a form of crime prevention or.
It has been for that trail. And really, I wouldn't say for all trails because one to Ogden Road, there was never any way to get out there. So there was nobody out there. But the one between Nelson and Mulberry Street, that was a good place for people to hide. Plenty of cover, lots of honeysuckle, and the railroad tracks could get you wherever you wanted to go off the railroad tracks. But once that has changed into a trail, you have, I bet I saw 25 people just this morning early, just biking that. And when you have that much activity on a trail, if somebody sees something that shouldn't be, like a campfire going or a tent pitch, everybody got a cell phone. You just call the police. They'll come down and take care of it. And they patrol it also. They go up that about 2 or 3 times a day. That kind of take care of that problem. Not that there aren't homeless people walking on the trail. It's a public trail. They're welcome to walk there. But they're not welcome to live there.
Sure.
Nobody is.
Yeah. What was your next trail?
The next one was the Judy Gannot Trail.
And who built the Judy Gannot Trail? Was it Judy Gannot? Okay.
Judy Gannot is a local lawyer. Her office was right over here. She just retired less than a year ago. And I think probably to drum up business. She's community-minded, and she wanted to build a castle playground, which we have out there now. So she invented the Banana Split Festival in her mind. Yeah. She read the story about the drugstore that made banana splits, and she decided they must have been the first ones. They invented it. So we'll have a Banana Split Festival in order to raise money for the playground. And I did say to her once, Judy, how do you know somebody else didn't have the banana split before us? She says, well, I don't. But if I say we're the first, then they have to challenge me. She's a lawyer,
Oh, my God.
So they have to prove that we're not the first.
Yikes.
So the Banana Split Festival eventually got taken over by Rotary, I believe it was. But it generated enough money that they built a castle park, which was great for 20-some years. And then they decided it's wood, it's deteriorating, we need to replace it. So about 5 years ago, it was replaced with what it is now, the TimberTech type material that there's no splinters. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before that, who went to the park? You went for baseball games in the summer. That was about it. So she really enhanced the park with that project. And so we decided we'll name the trail going through the park the Judy Gannot Trail. She had nothing to do with it other than she was a big supporter of the park. Okay. Yeah.
That's a good story.
She didn't donate money or anything. She just, she donated inspiration.
Yeah. And that's the park that connects the College Park to Kroger's, right? To Rombach Avenue.
Goes out to Kroger, right.
Okay. So that's the third trail. Mm-hmm. What was the next trail?
It was Lowe's Drive.
Okay.
And Lowe's Drive, when you have people in the right places, one of our board members was at the city administrator. When Lowe's came in and said, we want to build a Lowe's store, and they said, well, you have to have a street to get there because there was no street there. So called it Lowe's Drive. And if you're going to have a street, you need to have a sidewalk on one side and a bike trail on the other. And they went, okay. Lowe's is a big thing. They're used to bike trails and sidewalks. For Wilmington, people might have said, why do we have to do all that?
Yeah.
So, Lowe's Drive, it was easy. They just went through. Like Lowe's said, of course, that's what we'll do. And so that's why we have the bike trail to Lowe's Drive. It goes out to Prairie, and we would like to cross Prairie and go up the Fisher floodplain, which is the north side of the city. It would come out by the old drive-in, and then beyond the drive-in, it would come out on 68. The last house on 68 where Davy Risk lives, that's where it would come out. That's part of that floodplain. And then we'd like to continue to cross from there, which is more Roberts land, and bring it around to the high school and the middle school so that people could have a whole circle around Wilmington to bike or hike within the city.
And once it got out there, it would connect to Ogden at some point, right?
Yes. From around the high school, it would go to the neighborhood called Lakewood. There was also a senior center out there in Cape May. It would go through that over to Lakewood, and then from Lakewood, it would cut across to the Ogden Trail. Okay. And that would be the circle.
And you have plans to do this or just your hopes to do this?
It's a big fat orange line that shows where it's going to go. Why? Because we're not sure exactly who's going to sell us what, I've already met with several people that own that land, and the last farmer that I met with, he said, I don't want that land. I inherited it, but I do farm it, but it's 15 miles away from where I live, so I'll trade you land. I don't have any farms to trade you. He says, well, you see it, and he pointed out a couple pieces of land up here. He said, if you can buy those, I'll trade you for those, and then you can put the bike trail through. So
that's funny.
Yeah, I learned about farming. If you sell 300 acres of land, you have to pay capital gain tax on what you made. And then if you buy another piece of land, you got to pay taxes on what you just bought. So if you trade land, you avoid all those taxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's smart.
I learned a lot in this job.
More than one way to get a deal done.
That's right. More than one way. The Rombach Trail that goes up to Walmart.
Yeah.
That was just part of the state plan. If you're going to improve Rombach Avenue, you need to have a trail on one side. That's just how we do things now. So that was an easy one. There's a 7-mile trail that goes through Sabina called the Friendship Trail. And we're trying to connect to Washington Courthouse that way. And that came about because Dayton Power and Light owned that corridor to build a future power line through. And they decided, well, we've never built a power line there, and we're paying taxes for it every year. Let's donate it to a nonprofit like Rails to Trails. So they didn't donate it, but we got it at a fraction of the price. So we bought that. Then we had the land to build the trail, and we went from Borum Road, which is the Clinton County line, through Sabina, through Reesville, and back to Melvin Road. We had to stop at Melvin Road because there's a stone quarry there. And DP&L didn't own that land. We bought what DP&L had. And so he owed out money to build that trail. It's a very nice trail. And we didn't have enough money to pave the whole thing. About a year after we opened it, ODOT settled all the accounts, paid all the vendors, and they said, you have $63,000 left over. It goes back to your organization. So we used that to pave it from Sabina out to Borum Road. And then when we got that done, we had a fundraiser, and we paved it from Reesville, is where the pavement ended. The trail was there. It was gravel, but we paved it from Reesville to the Anderson Fork Bridge, which is getting close to Melvin Road. Health First has been a big supporter of ours. They've given us money for grants like that. Sabina, when it turned, it had a group called Sabina 2000, and they raised money from like 1995 to the year 2000 to make improvements in the village of Sabina. And they did that. They raised the money, they made the improvements, and they had a lot of money left over. And so I went, we want to build a trail in Sabina. You got any money? And they said, yeah, we'll give you everything we got left.
Wow.
I don't know what it was, 6,000 or something, but it's enough to do some paving with.
So when you worked out that deal with Dayton Power and Light to get that land at a fraction of the price, in the agreement, did you say that they have the ability to build a power line if they want to in the future, or?
They don't have that ability without our permission because we own it now.
Gotcha.
But if they came along and probably something like that, they'd probably bury it. Or the other thing the city of Wilmington was interested in was running a water line up that trail to get water to Sabina. But Sabina still has their own wells and haven't latched onto that. And the same trail goes all the way to Courthouse. But now, if you've read recently, they are doing that. The water's coming, and it's going up I-71 to the new battery plant in Courthouse. For a period of time, a couple of years ago, I thought they're going to want our trail. But that's okay, because they'll dig it up, they'll put the water line in, and then they'll put the trail back down, and it'll go all the way to Courthouse. So we would win on that in the end.
Yeah. So wait, Wilmington is providing water for the power plant, you said?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. That sounds good for us.
It's very good for us because we signed an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers back when Nick Eland was mayor, and we bought a lot more water than we need. So we have to keep paying for this water. They thought when the Air Force Base went out, there'll be industries out there that'll need a lot of water. Well, the industry that came in was airborne, and they didn't particularly use a lot of water to sort. They didn't manufacture anything. They just sorted things and used airplanes and sorting machines. So Wilmington didn't need all the water that it was contracted to pay for. So we've been paying that for more than 20 years. The benefit now will be the battery plant will pay for part of that water. They'll use a lot of water, and they'll pay for that. So, it just takes a load off of Wilmington a little bit.
What is Rails to Trails? What is that exactly?
It's a national conservancy from the 1980s, I believe it started. And the idea was to change abandoned rail corridors into recreational trails. And they started with the idea of rail banking. When all the railroads were going out of business just because people were using freeways and not railroads anymore, they thought, well, if we don't do something, all this property will get chopped up and people build homes on it or factories or farms or whatever. It'll be gone. The corridor will be gone. We want to preserve the corridor. So that's one of the things that Rails to Trails do. They preserve the rail corridors. If the railroads would ever come back and want that corridor back, they'd have to buy it from us. And what we would do is called Rails with Trails. So you'll have a rail line and you'll have a bike trail right beside it. And that sounds awful. You don't want a bike beside a train, but trains don't go through that often.
Yeah.
A couple times a week. You feel kind of privileged if there's a train. I'm up close, maybe 50 feet away, But
Yeah.
yeah.
So Rails to Trails is actually taking over the railroad to make a path, but Rails with Trails is just next to it.
Exactly. And it started as an all-volunteer agency. Now they have national headquarters in Washington, D.C. We have the Midwestern representative, Eric Oberg. He lives in Yellow Springs. He's the one that came to me and said, come to this meeting. I got to tell you something about DP&L in this corridor that will be for sale. I wouldn't have known about that if he hadn't asked me to come to a meeting on it. So, yeah, 10 years later, he's at our dedication of that trail, and he's just, wow, I helped get this thing going. But he's helped get a lot of things going. He's over the whole Midwest. There are paid employees to it now, but still, it's groups like ours that are voluntary.
And one of your plans was to build a path from Lowe's Drive, where the railroad is, to Sabina, you said?
To Melvin Road. Once you get to Melvin Road, there already is a trail now to Sabina.
And you wouldn't be getting rid of the railroad track, you'd just be building next to it?
Yeah. From Melvin Road, if you start at Melvin Road, you look to your right, and there's train cars parked there on a side. There's a grain storage thing there. And as you go up Melvin Road and onto Sabina, Reeseville and Sabina, there's a railroad over there. Sometimes you can't see it because the 100 feet between them is overgrown with bushes and trees and stuff, but it's there. And when a train goes through, you know it because they're pretty loud.
So we've covered a lot of trails so far.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the one that goes from All Children's Park and the Denver Park out to Davis Drive yet. Is that the newest one? Hospital?
The way that works is the Judy Gannot Trail that goes through the park, right by the bridge over the pond. There's a new trail that was built about 2 years ago now. Once again, it was with state money while they were improving Davis Drive and building Lynn Lane, which is the new road that there's nothing on. The hospital's there, and then there's nothing. Mm-hmm. So they had that built, and while they were doing it, let's put in a trail beside it. That's what we do when we build a new road. So there was also a water line that went through the park, through the woods, and joins into Lynn Lane. So that water line is now covered with an asphalt trail. It's a mile long. Mm-hmm. From the pond in the park, around the dog park, through the woods, and around it. 2 new ponds, and then follows Lynn Lane to David's Drive. So that's done. Then the next phase was to build a trail on David's Drive. And that's what the big controversy has been the last month. Should we do it or should we not? And once again, we went back to, we didn't fund it, Rails to Trails. We advocated for it. We took all the people that use the trails and said, contact City Council, let them know this is what you want. And they did. And City Council listened.
So who got that grant together, the one that was recently contested?
Who wrote the grant?
Who looked out for it and who got the grant together?
City of Wilmington, okay. Brian Scheidegger.
Okay.
Taylor Stucker consulted with him on it. He got the grant, and that's kind of where the confusion came in, because when we had an election and we got a new mayor, all the people that worked for the old mayor either left or were let go. And so everybody that knew about this project and did the first 2 years of it weren't around for the 3rd year. So the mayor's going, I don't know, is this something we really want to do? I don't think he was crazy about it, but I think it's just because it's a lot of work to do, and maybe I don't know how to do that because I didn't start this project.
Yeah.
So
someone had a good point against that trail, that maybe at one time there was Southern State College, and then that trail would have connected to that college campus, but now it's just a county building, which I thought was a good point, but
it's wrong.
Okay.
There's more.
That's what I'm asking you for.
It was Southern State, and Southern State was dwindling. I mean, the building not, but the number of students going there. Huh. Southern State closed it. We want to sell this building. The county commissioner said, that's a good building. Let's buy it. That'll be our new, the county offices were strewn throughout the courthouse and over on Sugar Tree Street and out on Nelson Avenue. And everything was everywhere. So that's why they bought it. There's more traffic there now than there ever was at Southern State. So this trail is going to benefit more people than it ever would have with Southern State. That's what's wrong with that reasoning.
Sure. Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And then do you imagine that at some point there would be like housing development out there in that area? There's a lot of farmlands out there.
It could be. They actually started building one. They put in streets, lights, sewers and all that. 134 and David's Drive. It's still there. I mean, the roads are. But before they built the first house, DHL said, we're leaving Wilmington. Well, that shut that down. It's like, oh, we're not going to build all these houses if nobody's going to be, working out here and living out here. The other thing is David's Drive. You could have housing out there, but it's more designed for light industry.
Yeah.
For educational institutions, for light industry, basically. So if you lived out there, you'd see a lot from the airport. You'd hear the planes going over. I mean, we all do anyway, but you'd hear a lot more there than you would back here. I could see a shopping center going in from Rombach and Davids, where those areas are cornfields now. I noticed they have for sale signs in them, so see what goes in out there.
I think Rombach and Davis is where the Wawa was supposed to go or going to go.
Yeah, that's right.
Another gas station.
Yeah, maybe that's...
Convenience store.
Convenience store.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens there.
Yeah. I think to your point earlier of it's one thing to explain a trail to somebody, but you have to actually go and experience them. So I was familiar with the College Trail a lot. I've traveled that trail a lot, but I had never gone on the Lutheran Morin Trail ever until just recently when I bought a bike at Wheelies and actually took it all the way
Economic development.
Yeah. And actually explored those trails. Like, well, this is actually really, really beautiful. And it's just right in town, right downtown. You can get on it and keep going for miles and miles. And it's a whole new world out there. It's great.
If you start at Wheelies and go to Ogden Road and back, you got 10 miles under your belt. So
that's why you need an e-bike for, because that's right. A long way.
Well, it's not that long.
I guess for wimps.
If you do it on a regular basis, you don't think the kids run it. The high school and college kids run it.
That's psycho.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
Yeah, that's what I say too. I'll bike it. You run it. I'm never going to run her.
Do we touch already on what's the main objective of the Clayton County Trails Coalition? You said there was 2 objectives to it.
Main objective is to change the culture of our community to a community that thinks about being outside, and they go outside. They get up off the couch and go take a walk or take a bike ride or take the family to a park and get there by a trail. And the reason that's important is Clinton County is one of the worst counties in the state of Ohio in terms of heart disease and diabetes. We just have more of it. There's people do too much sitting. Outside of having surgery or medications, the best way to avoid diabetes and heart disease is to be active. Get out there and move around. And we had a YMCA, which we don't have any longer, and that helped a lot. Got people up and out doing things. And so without that, we have our city park. We have a pool that's private, meaning you have to buy a membership to get in, and some people don't want to spend the money on that. And we have the trails. That's our contribution. Give people a place to walk. And Wheelies, what a huge contribution that is. That gives people a place to walk. And let's have a drink or eat or get a bike. That patio intentionally out there, open. You don't have to buy anything. You just go up there and sit if you want, or meet. That's what happens is they have the Wheelies walks on Mondays and Wednesdays. They're trying to get me to do a wheelie bike ride. You just set a time and let people know you're going to be there, and we're all going to go together. If people haven't experienced the trail before, there you go. You do it with somebody that you know, and then you're more apt to do it on your own. So, change the culture so we're a more active culture. And in order to do that, our job is to build trails so that everybody in Wilmington has a trail, we hope, in a 5 or 10 minute walk from their house. They can get this ring trail I was talking about, that they'll be able to pick up on that. And the kids will, instead of riding a bus, I bet you know how much fun it was riding a bus, right? Yeah. So instead of riding a bus, you can also walk to school safely.
Speaking to that point, are you guys part of the Safe Routes to Schools program?
We have been. Our group brought Safe Routes to School to Wilmington, and there's a long sidewalk between Homeschool, it goes all the way to Southreach. That's a cement sidewalk. Do you know where Homeschool is?
I do, but I don't know how that connects to Southridge, but okay.
If you walk back Route 730 or Truesdale Street,
Uh-huh.
that takes you to Southridge. That's that whole neighborhood over there built after World War II. And that's where the students of Homeschool live. I mean, that's like 60% of the population is that housing development. And the kids can walk to school because you're on a highway. Yeah. So when Safe Routes to Schools came about, one of our board members heard about it and brought it to the group. And we worked with the schools and the city of Wilmington to get that going. And I bet it took us several years. First of all, you have to get everybody coordinated, meet all the requirements, and then you have to wait in line until the city or the state has money to fund it. So we'd almost forgotten about it when we got the call from the state. Hey, you got the money now to build the sidewalk. It's a long sidewalk. It's probably a mile long. Now kids can walk from that whole neighborhood over to home school.
I didn't know about that, but there was something recently that's going on with even more safe routes to school.
Right after we had the vote to approve David's Drive, Paul Goodhue, the engineer that the city and the county use, he got up and talked about safe routes to school, saying we're putting in applications. We want to get trails connected to the high school and middle school so kids can walk. Same thing that we're trying to do. And he said, we're meeting the guidelines. We're putting in our application so we'll get funding to be able to build it. And as he said that, I thought, if we would have just voted this trail down, you'd never see the end to your line. You'd be behind for the state of Ohio funds. Because if you turn back in state of Ohio funds, you're not going to get more funds. They're going to go, no, we worked with you and it fizzled. So we're going to work with people that are serious about it.
Yeah. I know we're jumping around right now, but one thing that I want to ask about the wrong back trail that goes to Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
I heard some people fuss about the trees along that path, how they're under the telephone line, and that they thought that was a silly idea. What is your thought on that?
Those trees were donated by the Wilmington City Tree Commission. It's a totally different organization. And I asked them the same question. Do you realize you just put all those trees under the power lines?
Uh-huh.
And they said, yeah. He said, these are 20-year trees. They will grow and flourish and reach their peak in about 20 years. And they won't grow as high as the telephone lines.
Okay.
They're breeds of trees that don't get very tall.
Okay.
And their thinking is something's going to happen out there. Those trees won't stay there. In 100 years, they won't be there. Businesses or commercial, or it'll all get changed around. It won't be a cornfield or a soybean field over there. That's why they did that, but they did put the right kind of trees in. The same tree commission put trees in downtown Wilmington, and about 20 years later, they had to take them all out because they were up on the second floors. They were covering traffic light. They were just got too big. They weren't meant to be in a downtown. So they took them all out and put in new trees that were smaller varieties that weren't going to grow that big.
I like the jungle feel. Just
The
go through
jungle feel.
downtown, have lights strung up in between all the trees.
I mean, I like that, except if it blocks my logo on the building,
Okay, just hang out
that's
with
a problem.
tree.
I guess that's allowed. That's a good point, though, that those trees are just there for a short time until something develops out here. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Years ago, Wilmington talked about closing South Street, the main block of town where the city building is, just closing that off and making Route 68 go around it. And to make it a pedestrian-friendly area so that people could eat a meal out on the street or restaurants could serve out there, like you see in a lot of cities today.
Lebanon has it on their Mulberry Street.
Yeah.
They kind of have the sidewalk and the street are the same levels. They can just have a big festival out there. Yeah,
right. And that's what Wilmington was going for. Since it is State Route 68, the state has to cooperate with that. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but the idea has resurfaced on Sugar Tree Street. And that will probably be the street that gets closed off to traffic permanently and become a pedestrian street between South Street and Mulberry Street.
Yeah, that would be nice.
We'll see if that happens. But right now they temporarily close it when they need to for festivals.
Yeah, I've talked to some businesses on that street who say that that's just way easier to close that street than it is to close Main Street just for traffic and trucks and stuff. It takes a lot more effort for the city to close down, even Main Street, not even South Street. But
yeah.
Is there anything that your organization needs help with right now?
We have a QR code on all the signs that are on the trails. And if you go to that QR code, it takes you to that website, which shows you the map of the trail, and it gives pictures and an explanation of each trail through town. And people can donate to Rails to Trails. It's a nonprofit. It's tax deductible. That'd be great to get more donations. We have a lot coming in. We're to the point now where we get donations and we think, who is that? Usually it's not a person. It's a name of a company or something. But yeah, we could use support in that way. the most valuable thing that we've had was last month when people talked to their city council members and we didn't lose that $1 million project. That's better than a $100 donation, because that got us $1 million project.
That's hard to get people to come out to stand up for something. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
One question that Tierra has is about environmental concerns.
Yes. And when we went to the public meeting, one of the reasons listed for not building that trail on Davis Drive was an environmental concern. I wanted to know your opinion on that.
He was referring to the trail on Rombach that flooded last spring.
Yeah.
And the reason it flooded was because it wasn't engineered correctly, not the trail, but there's a huge field out there that's, I don't know what's growing in it this year, but that all drains toward Rombach, and they didn't put a big enough catch basin in to get it across the street to the creek. So the trail is there, it goes over it, but what makes the difference is what's under the trail, the size of the pipe under the trail. Michael Crow, that took his time and attention back in April or whatever that flooded. And for him, starting new in this job, okay, I don't want to go through that again if I don't have to. So that was one of his concerns. But when they rebuilt David's Drive, they got all that straightened out. There is a pathway there already. All it needs is a trail on top. It's almost as good as a rail corridor that's been abandoned because those have already been engineered and they're flat and ready to go. So, no, we don't see any environmental concern. But, as time changes, if they put in factories or put in housing developments out there, it could alter the way the water flows. It could make a concern, but whoever builds that housing development or that factory or whatever it turns out to be, they need to address that when they're building the infrastructure there. And the trail, you just go under the trail if you want to drain it from one side to the other.
Yeah, I think that was some of the arguments people were making too. It's like, yes, that was a problem on Ronback, but instead of just never doing it again, another trail, let's just learn from that and build trails better.
Engineer it properly.
Better, yeah.
This can all be improved. When I was a student at Wilmington College from 67 to 71, downtown where the old post office building is, where CVS is, those manhole covers would blow up and the water would be spouting out 8 feet tall. And you couldn't go through any of the streets down in that dip part of town. They were all flooded. Out by Lowe's, they built the Fisher floodplain, in which they put in a series of dams and water breaks so the water wouldn't all come to the lowest point, which is our county courthouse. That's the lowest point in the city, And so they changed all that. It doesn't flood anymore. And they can change the end of Rombach so it doesn't flood anymore.
It's interesting.
It costs money.
Sure.
It would have been better to do it with state money when they built it in the first place. But
Sure. The last part of the questions about the organization is like stigmas and rumors about the trails. I think one thing is people are concerned about homelessness and people who are homeless living on the trails, or maybe people who are undesirable being on the trail, so they don't feel comfortable going on the trails, in their words. How would you address that?
That is a matter of perception. It's not a matter of fact. There are homeless people on the trail, but they don't live on the trail. And if they do live on the trail, they won't be there very long because the police will take them out. Well, I shouldn't say that. That sounds like
take them off the trail.
Take them off. Yeah. Under John Stanforth's administration, they went back in the areas there and they took out campsites. They took out tents and furniture they had hauled down from someplace and just removed all that stuff and took it to the dump. They also cut out a lot of honeysuckle so that you can't hide behind it. Maybe that was the county money or state money that did it. Along the trail, you can look into a woods and you see the trees and you see the brush on the ground, but you don't see honeysuckle that's 8 feet tall. You can see through it. That's where a lot of that encampment was going on, kind of behind the hospital and between the hospital and the trail. And the people that did it knew what they were doing, because I thought, well, you can cut honeysuckle out, but it'll be back up in a year. But they killed it. They put something on it so it didn't come back up. This is where I bring Taylor into it. He got money through the land bank to build a trail down. There's a gravel trail. If you're walking on the paved trail, you can go down onto the gravel trail. It takes you back by the creek. Yeah. It kind of winds around. It goes one loop or another loop and comes out in another area. So the idea is you get people back there hiking, doing what they're supposed to be doing, not living. If we can get the rest of that honeysuckle cleared out more toward the fairgrounds, that is a place where you often have to chase people out of. But back to the homeless, It is a problem, but it's not a trail problem. You see that on Main Street as you're driving down Main Street. There they are. First thing in the morning, they're all walking. And it's a bigger problem than the trails. It is a problem, and there probably is some solution to it. They're on the streets. They're on our trails.
Yeah.
They're in this building in
It's
the wintertime.
not more of a problem on the trails. There's not like extra homeless people on the trails than there is downtown. It's just you see them downtown, they're also on the trails too. Like it's the same people.
Yeah, it's the same people getting from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bigger problem than I can solve. But I think what you were doing with that newspaper is one of the best solutions I've seen. It doesn't solve the whole problem, but it gives people resources, or it gives them access to resources if they're homeless. If I want to sleep someplace, who can I call? What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
It amazes me, though, that they don't have a home, but they've all got a cell phone. So really, they can call those numbers. It's not like they don't have a phone. They manage that somehow. I've never been in that situation, so I don't know how they do it. But
when I first started the newspaper thing, I asked Lee at Sugar Tree Ministries, like, should we even do a print publication for people to access this? And he said, most people that are homeless have a cell phone, so we probably don't need to. We also did the paper for the older population of Wilmington who just likes to read paper still.
But I also think a lot of the homeless people have a mobile phone, but not a smartphone.
What keeps you passionate about the trails and continuing to build trails and get grants and lobby at city council? What keeps you passionate to do all those things?
Why am I passionate about it? Because it needs to be done. And I've spent 30 years doing it. And when you've done something for 30 years, you want to see it to its end. I once thought, well, I'll be happy when Rails to Trails will go out of business because we'll have all the trails we need. But if the city grows, you have to have more trails. But I will be happy when we are connected from Morrow to Clarksville to Wilmington to Washington Courthouse, and then it's somebody else's problem after Washington Courthouse. Not problem, it's somebody else's project to do, put it that way. One of our board members that lives in Sabina wrote a book on the Grasshopper Railway, and he's passionate about getting it all the way to past Zanesville to Trinitytown, which is where the railroad started, some little place like Clarksville that you and I've never heard of. But if you walk those trails, you see these stone obelisks, and it says T120 or 121, or got a number on it. And I always wonder, what's the T for? And he said, that's for Trinitytown. That's where the railroad started back in the 1800s. They started building it from there and came this direction all the way to Cincinnati, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm getting a history lesson too.
Yeah, Trinitytown. I never even heard of that place.
Yeah, I hadn't either. It's by Zanesville.
Okay.
But it didn't grow like Zanesville.
Huh. What's a quote or a piece of wisdom that's helped guide you that you would like to share with other people?
It's the quote that we put at the bottom of our meeting agenda for every meeting. Let's see, where would that be? I don't have a meeting minute on my... Okay, I'm going to look it up for you.
I got it, I think. Margaret Mead.
Did you Google it?
Yeah.
There we go. A small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. There. That's beautifully said.
Do you want to say it one more time so we can start with never?
Oh, we can just edit together. It's just real. Just keep
So I think back to 3 citizens in my living room and what we have today.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I leave Rails to Trails, I have no doubt that it will continue because we've got quite a group now. And we've got people that want to be on the board that I said, okay, when our officers go off, we'll bring you on, but you have to wait, you know, and I hope they'll still be there when we've waited. But yeah, I just think it'll be ongoing.
I like that. Our like mantra at Real Change Wilmington is we are a community of empowered individuals. And it kind of fits that quote.
Yeah, it does.
That we have the power to do things.
Yeah.
Speaking of real change, what does real change mean to you? What does a real change look like in our community?
A real change in our community will be when things are more equitable for everybody, and when people that come to our community are more readily accepted. Yeah, I've experienced that not growing up here. I didn't get here till I was 18. So people, well, you're not from here, are you? And it's it's part of life. People my age will talk about their days in high school and elementary school, and they say, "Don't you remember that?" I go, "Don't you remember I didn't grow up here?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess you did you? So it's but being equitable when people come here from another town, especially if they're in a bad situation, because they know there's help here, that we actually help them and not try to get them out of here. I mean, that's not a solution to the problem. It might be a solution to Wilmington's problem, but it doesn't help the people that need the help, and it just puts it off on somebody else.
Yeah, at some point you can't push any further. So
yeah.
I know there are people who feel like, oh, Wilmington doesn't accept me because I'm not grown up here and stuff, but I don't feel that way because I maybe just don't care like that people have those kind of views. But I like to say that like I'm not from here, but I'm for here. So
can I start saying that too?
Sure, you can steal my quote.
Although most people, since I've been here over 50 years, they think I am from here.
I actually assume so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they wonder why I can't remember back in the high school days.
I mean, you've been here longer than I have, so I feel like that qualifies.
Yeah, just say you're old. You can't remember back there anymore. You're just too old to remember. That's funny.
Yeah, that could work.
All right. So that's pretty much it for our podcast. Any like closing thoughts that you had, or how can people connect with you?
Well, looking back over 30 years of building rails to trails, there's a lot of good people that have come in and gone out. They come in and they help with the project, and they move away, or they retire, or they pass away, or but their work is still here. What they've done, it's like the Indian Mountains. That's not going away. Even if it's deserted for years, that trail roads will always be here. So it's a gift to the community that is permanent.
Mm-hmm. And if someone wants to get started with the trails, or if they've never been on a trail before, what would you recommend them do?
If they want to start using the trail, they should go to our website and see where the trails are, see the trails map. I would tell anybody right now, if they're fresh out of the box and how do I get involved with the trails, start at wheelies. Patronize wheelies, or just meet people at wheelies. And once you're at wheelies, you see where the trail is, at least one trail. And from there, wheelies will be giving out maps that will show you all the trails, or the QR code will be there also to show you the maps of the trails. If they want to get involved with the organization, once again, ask wheelies. They can put the person in touch with me or with the group if I'm not with the group at the time. That's a big plus. The guy mentioned that talked me into starting Rails to Trails, Matt McKibben, lives in Tennessee now. And when Wheelie started building their building, and I met Josh and Terry, I kept him in the loop. Look, this is what we envisioned, that someday it would bring businesses to town. We didn't even think it would be a trail business, but we thought a restaurant or something that would go along with the trail. But that's the best we could ever imagine. So.
Yeah. I know that Terry and Josh speak highly of you. I think they mentioned that you helped them get the grant for the bicycles they got.
We are working on that. We wrote a grant through Health First for a trishaw.
Yeah.
And that's another agency called Cycling Without Age. Kind of started by a company in Denmark, in Copenhagen, that builds these, and it's all over the world. And the idea is someone with a disability or age-related disability that can't ride a bike anymore, or maybe never could, they can sit on this bike and a pilot will pedal you through the trail. You can get the same experience going down the trail, but you don't have to balance the bike or ride the bike. Yeah, we've written that grant, and I should hear about it any day now. They said the first week of June. Well, we're past that. When the foundation and the Health First is going to decide where their money goes for this funding cycle.
Nice.
But I think it will go through because every funding cycle, they have a special emphasis. When we put in the healthy living sign on the trail, that was the year they emphasized healthy living. What can we do for healthy living? So that's what we came up with. And this year, it's about getting people with disabilities to be able to do things everybody else can do. So we thought, you're speaking to it right here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for what you've done for our community for the past 30 years. Thank you for being on our podcast. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Well, that's it for our podcast today, folks. Hope you enjoyed our interview with Bruce Saunders at the Clinton County Trails Coalition. If you have any more questions for him, feel free to reach out directly. If he'll talk with us two dorks, he will certainly talk with you as well. After all, we are a community of empowered individuals. So, Tiara, if people want to get in touch with Real Change Wilmington, how would they do that?
You can contact us on our website at realchangewilmington.com, visit our Facebook and Instagram pages, or grab a free copy of our local newspapers at Kroger, Sam's Meat, Fiesta Veracruz, and other locations. We also currently send our newspaper direct mail to over 2,500 Wilmington residents, so if you want to help us cover printing costs and advertise your local business, event, or job posting, please email us at advertise@realchangewilmington.com.
Very cool. With that, I'm your host, Dustin Pierce.
And I'm your co-host, Tiara Harris.
Keep it real, Wilmington.